Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. My name is Harits Firdaus from PBC, North American Indians. The first people to live in North America were the American Indians or Native Americans. According to the religious and full story of many Indians group, their earliest ancestors arrived in North America from the inside of the earth. Modern scientists, however, believe that the first Native Americans came from Asia 15,000 to 18,000 years ago across the Bering Strait from Siberia to Alaska. There were no men, that is, that didn't live in one place, but instead were always on the move as they looked for food. In other words, the first American Indians were hunters who followed the animals their food source during time of the migrations from place to place. Together, the nomadic people and animals slowly migrated toward the south. These early inhabitants spread out all over the North American continent, now Canada, the United States, and Mexico. There were a great variety of language, religious beliefs, and customs among the many tribes or groups of Indians. By the time the first Europeans arrived, the Indians were living in several different culture areas. The members of various tribes in each culture had frequent contact with one another and shared similar characteristics, but they didn't have much in common with tribes in other culture areas. The lifestyle of the people who live in each culture areas reflected the geography of that area. The inhabitants of the northwest coast, now British Columbia, Canada, lived in hunting and fishing, but they didn't lead a nomadic life. They couldn't take advantage of the resorts where they were living. The oceans and rivers produced salmon, halibut, and many other fish. The forests were rich in animal life. They offered deer, elk, and bear, as well as smaller animals. In the forest, the inhabitants could also find berries to eat and wood for boats, furniture, and houses. Geography influenced other areas of life too. Hunting was seasonal work, best in the summer. Therefore, the tribe members were very busy and certain times of years, but in not other sections. Unlike the inhabitants on the northwest coast, the Indians of the eastern plain had an agricultural society. They lived in farming communities and raised crops of corn, beans, squash, and tobacco. The members of that tribe lived differently from those in the northwest. Because there were so few trees on the flat plains, their houses were out of instead of wood. While the food was growing, the people stayed in their communities. Yet after the harvest, when they had to brew in the crops, the Indians rode west on horses they had gotten from Spanish workers. When Europeans arrived on the North American continent several hundred years ago, the Native American old way of life began to change. The difference between Europeans and Indian values soon led to difficulties. As the right moved west, they looked over more and more of the land for themselves. The Americans before the Europeans came, but they had lost something even more important, their sense of identity. When the Plain Indians, for instance, lost their hunting ground and when the buffalo became almost extinct. Today, although some Native Americans live in urban areas, many live in our reservation land, held on the language and ancient custom of their ancestors, while others, in general, have forgotten the old ways. Although some groups are relatively wealthy, most are very poor and have had to receive help from the government. In recent years, many tribes have begun to regain their sense of identity of their cultural heritage. They are having worked once again, this time in court, and their fishing and hunting right the basis of the ancestral way of life. Okay, enough. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.